The Shop to the Apartment. Written and read by W.P. Thrift. You can find me at Lantis Armstrong on Twitter. Chapter 8. Showdown at the Circle M. Radix didn't want to admit to Amy that he found this research harder than anticipated. So he didn't. But seriously, would it have killed the publishing companies to translate one lick of this crap into English? Radix flipped to the front of one of the books, then used his pocket guide for Arabic to figure out who was responsible for this publication. He had to use a thesaurus to then look up the name he had translated, only to discover that it was a sect of ancient monks that had mysteriously disappeared from the face of the earth long ago. So, none of these books came from publishing companies. Not one in the entire library. They were all hand-scribed by monks. No wonder so many of the students ended up failing out of Cattail Technical College. The resources here they have to work with are bullshit. It did help that Radix was a novice linguistics and foreign language student, taking up that mantle during many cold, damp nights spent in the slammer. With nothing else to do but listen to Lantis rant about MMO video games, Radix had taken to reading anything he could get his hands on. For a stretch of time, he had gone quite hardcore into studying French, German, Italian, Japanese, Spanish, and even Latin just for fun. He then gave up on it all, because once you move from learning basic words into learning sentence structures, the studies get way harder. But right now, he really wished that he had stuck to his lessons. Come to think of it, if he was going to keep hanging out with Amy as he was hoping he would, he may just get back into studying such things again. She seemed to know every language that the monks threw at her, which was mostly Arabic and Latin, as naturally as she knew her own language. Radix just hoped that he would have time to study between dealing with all the homework that the school kept assigning him. But he'd do his best not to let school interfere with his education, to paraphrase Mark Twain. "I'm sorry," Radix said. "I'm just not even sure what I'm looking for." He was worried that Amy would use this as an excuse to tell him to get lost again. Some kind of confirmation that he was as incompetent as she kept trying to prove to him that he was. And so he was very surprised when she just came right out and told him what he needed to know. "Look for anything making references to Fabribus," Amy said. Radix was super relieved at her reaction, but now he was curious. Did she give him a straight answer because he had finally broken down some of her walls with his stunning charm? Or was she just in the zone with doing research and let her guard drop by mistake? He decided to assume the best and not seek a true answer for that. "Gotcha," Radix said, but just had to ask one more thing. "So, what's a Fabribus?" And then he felt dumb, and so he quickly added, "Wait, that's the name of the monster beneath the school, right? Okay, I understand. Never mind." Amy smirked at that. She found it amusing just how gun-shy he was acting towards looking potentially foolish in front of her. Perhaps she found it even a tiny bit charming. Radix had to bust out a translation guide in order to get any real headway done. That was more of a hassle than he thought it would be, as he had to leave the library in order to find a translation guide. He had planned to walk back into town to hunt for one, but found a second school library before he left the campus grounds. Or, better put, he found the primary library. The one he and Amy were in was actually a somewhat secret library, fairly well hidden off the beaten path. It wasn't under lock and key or anything, but generally a student would need Alcyon's permission to enter it. Returning with his Latin and Arabic for Nincompoops book, he finally started making headway in his research. He saw that Fabribus was Latin for fever. But since Amy called the monster by its Latin name, he figured it was one of those proper name kind of deals where you don't use the translation. So he'd stick to calling it Febribus. Speaking of, he quickly enough found a reference to Febribus being a she. Curiously, she had a sister who was also named Alcyone. Radix wondered if the president having an interest in this monster had to do with her name also coincidentally having the same name, Alcyone, as well, or if she had changed her name to Alcyone after taking an interest in the story. The third option was that she was actually the same sister who had been alive for over 1,000 years. But Radix thought that idea was silly. Okay, I wasn't going to bring this up, but this is the third time I've come across this prophecy, Radix said. Related to Febribus? Amy asked. It doesn't seem to be, but it only appears in books that also reference her. There has to be some connection, even if it's not a direct one, Radix said. So, what's the prophecy? One sec, Radix said. Stupid things in Latin. Haven't written down the translation yet, so trying to remember exactly how it goes. Okay, ahem. He cleared his throat. From the world of forms emerges the dead hand of Plato to find their origin in the three terrible children. The one who is theirs, but who also must survive, and not survive alone, lest their sorrow for humanity give rise to its end. Well, that's a whole lot to unpack right there. Then that must be Solid it's talking about, Amy said. Radix was surprised that she knew anything about all that jumbled mess. Say what now? I don't know if he's the origin or anything like that, but the prophecy says, of the children, one can't survive alone, Amy said. Alcyone told me about that. Not everything, but the gist was she wants someone named Solid to die, because she's trying to reduce the siblings' numbers to just one of them surviving. I guess she's going the other way with the prophecy. Instead of keeping them all alive, she wants to kill two of them and see if Amy stopped talking, suddenly wondering if the end of the world had been Alcyone's goal all along. Never mind, I could be entirely wrong here. Solid was just a name I was given. There's no sense in assuming that he had anything to do with the thing you just read. So, no offense, but you seem kind of off-put by murder, Radix said. Why did she think you would do anything like that? I'd never take offense to being called not a murderer, Amy replied. And she didn't want me to do it. She just implied that going after Solid may be kind of like a test run for Febribus, if she could learn to control her. I gotcha, Radix said. While Radix had never murdered anyone himself, or even helped someone else take a life, he certainly didn't feel like it would be beyond him to do so if it meant impressing Amy. That could totally be the bonding experience they needed, he believed. So how exactly does one control Febribus anyway? Radix asked. Death begets more death, Amy replied glumly. Every passage I read about it suggests human sacrifice to take possession of her. Amy let out a long sigh, which ended in a sniffle. I just don't understand why I can't be a scholar without getting so much blood on my hands. This isn't fair. Well, yeah, that's the way of the world, Radix replied flatly. Want to be a scientist? Fuse two animals together and make them kill people. Want to be a doctor? Separate two conjoined twins, then make them kill people with their newfound psychic twin baby powers. And, of course, if you want to be a scholar, take control of an ancient evil by killing people to make it go out and kill more people. And, of course, potentially instigate the end of the world. Are you joking? Amy demanded, actually asking that as a non-rhetorical question. I see it all the time, Radix said simply. Earth isn't a nice place. Not since all the monsters started showing up. This planet's just diseased, rotten. Beasts grow out of men all the time. And those that don't make a beast out of themselves are overwhelmed by the beast made from others. Amy had never thought about the world like that, but now that he mentioned it, this was a very clear observation that she had always just refused to accept before. She hated this. Worse than that, she hated how much hatred she had in her heart for everyone. She recognized the beasts of humanity and had hid herself away in the library all this time to avoid it. She rejected people, knowing that they would either become monsters later or be eaten by them. People were so unpleasant. But was that even their fault, or was it the world that makes them that way? She had never even looked at it from another angle before. She had always just blamed the people themselves, never the conditions of the environment. "This world is sick," Amy spat out. "It sure is." Radix brushed over this, having come to terms with it forever ago. This was all no big deal to him. "So, want to go into the sub-basement?" "What?" Amy was thrown back by that. "I mean, that's where the monster's supposed to be, right? Fabribus?" Radix asked. "I think we should go make sure that the monster's even real before we waste our time coming up with ways to control it." "I know how to control it. Sacrifice someone to it," Amy said. "The book describes in painstaking detail how to do it." There's probably another way to do it that you just haven't found yet," Radix said. "And if you haven't found it already, then that means it's probably going to be a huge pain in the ass to find. Which means we'd be spending a whole lot of time searching for nothing if this thing isn't even real." Amy had to admit there was a strong logic in his reasoning that she could get behind. "I suppose that sometimes a field trip can be the best learning experience." "Okay, we'll have a quick peek at the sub-basement, and once we've confirmed Fabribus is present, whatever form she may currently take, we'll come back up here and have an all-night reading and research session." Radix's nonchalant attitude broke when he saw just how excited she was getting about this. He cracked a smile, just happy to, for the very first time ever, see her happy about something. And she had good reason to be happy. Even though Radix had suggested without any supporting evidence that there may be another way to control the monster, he had said it with such conviction that she had believed it could very well be possible. It gave her hope that there was a chance that she could finish this task given to her by College President Alcyone without having to take a life. They both headed out of the library and towards the stairwell to the sub-basement. It was sealed away behind dozens of locked doors, magical barriers, traps, and guardian monsters. No one was ever meant to see the imprisoned Fabribus ever again. However, college regulation forbids creating completely sealed-off environments within a school. So the fire marshal had forced Alcyone to install a stairwell which was always unlocked and reached every floor of the building. Knowing this, Radix and Amy could just take the stairwell down to the sub-basement and skip right past all of the sealed doors and traps. Lantis had dragged the table out of Peter's bedroom and set it up in front of the couch so that he could prop his broken ankle up on it while watching some TV. His foot was wrapped up in a shirt, for lack of better medical supplies. The swelling had actually started to go down, and the infection got better when he contracted a far more aggressive infection, which savagely devoured the initial infection. So that might be a good thing. He couldn't be sure. Peter arrived home from one of his jobs just to grab a drink and leftover sandwich from the fridge before heading back out to his next job. Right after he entered the apartment, he banged his knee on the table that Lantis had dragged out into the living room. Cursing at him for dragging it in here, he hobbled to the kitchen and went to the fridge, only to find it completely empty. Someone had taken his sandwich and soda while he was at work, so that means no dinner for him. Leaving the apartment angry, He bangs his other knee on the table on the way out, cursing his head off as he slams the door behind him. Lantis turns up the volume on the TV and dares to crack a smile at how the day is going. He's so much happier now that he's sworn off ever working at the Circle M again. And then the door flings open because, of course, Peter forgot to lock it on his way out, so now anyone can just come on inside. And Janbert waltzes into the room. "Lantis!" Janbert barks. "Why aren't you at work?" "I quit," Lantis told her defiantly. "You can't quit. Now come on, Sisyphus needs help rolling the boulder up the hill today because it's been raining and the dirt's all muddy." Despite protest, Janbert grabs Lantis by his broken ankle and drags him out of the apartment by it, and all the way back to work at the Circle M. Lantis shivered as though he were running a fever while standing behind the counter. His body throbbed from all the effort required to push Sisyphus's boulder up the hill several times over the past few hours. He was finally relieved to come into the store and check out customers, which were livid at him for taking so long to walk from the boulder hill to the counter to check them out. Because it's so damn important that they get their blunt cigar right now. Sneezing, Lantis looks up to see a man in camouflage walking into the store. The guy looked around for a bit, looking for a person rather than for a junk food item like most of the people that browse around in here seek. He looks over and sees Lantis, then looks away, then looks back several more times before gasping, recognizing him. "Brother!" Liquid cried out. Lantis ignores this, not realizing he was talking to him. Liquid goes over to the counter and clears his throat loudly, trying to get Lantis to pay him attention. Lantis just reaches back and grabs a pack of smokes and puts them down on the counter, telling him it'll be $3.50, assuming the guy just wanted smokes. Everyone seems to just want either booze or smokes. "No, you idiot! I'm not a customer!" Liquid yelled. "Oh," Lantis said, then handed him the bathroom key. It was attached to a huge piece of metal, so theoretically someone couldn't just put it in their pocket and walk off with it. Yet that still happened all the time. "I don't need to use the bathroom either! Are you paying me any attention?" Liquid barked. "Eh?" Lantis looked over. "Do you not see me?" Liquid presented his face, holding both hands around it as though to say, "Ta-da! We're genetic twins!" Lantis raised a brow. He didn't see the resemblance. "I'm just older, because I was the second one created. You were the third, made years later," Liquid explained, then realized there was no point. "Forget it. It's not like you can take these answers with you. Into the grave." Liquid held up a handgun, expecting to simply pop one off between Lantis's eyes and be done with it. However, Lantis immediately dropped to the floor, a well-honed instinct by this point. In his time here at the Circle M, he had been held up at gunpoint 107 times in a single week. This place was just robbed a hell of a lot. In fact, the person behind Liquid put a gun up against his head and said, "I'm the one that be robbing this place today! Drop your gun!" Liquid sighed, then spun around, smacked the guy's gun away from his head while holding his own gun up, and then a shot was fired straight across his cheek. The next 3 people in line also had guns, as they had planned on robbing this place as well, and now they all had their weapons drawn on Liquid. "For fuck's sake!" Liquid screamed, then began his shootout with those 3 by diving behind the counter to use it as cover while he fired. Liquid did notice at this point that Lantis had used the confusion to get away, and was nowhere to be seen. "Beverly!" Liquid screamed into his radio after taking it off his belt. "Get in here now! I need backup!" Beverly Lunch Lady, the longtime cafeteria boss at Cattailville High School, barged into the Circle M with her chainsaw and began slicing off heads left and right. Every customer in the store was armed, at least 20 of them, and they had all planned on robbing this place at gunpoint. Beverly and Liquid fought diligently against the customers until they had taken them all down. Then they started their hunt for Lantis. He was hiding in the back room now, which Liquid personally checked through, but he could not spot him anywhere. Lantis had an innate sense for stealth, which he had developed from all his years running through the woods with the wolves that had raised him. When he wanted, he could become virtually invisible, even in plain sight. But not invisible from another guy who appeared right behind him, placing a hand over his mouth.
"Don't say a word."
The voice. It was also Liquid's?
"Your stealth is impressive, but please, Solid, let me handle those goons,"
Liquid said. He took his hand off of Lantis's mouth, and Lantis's first action was to look over the cartons of milk. There was a clear view of the store from the back room over the cartons. Back here was where all the surplus inventory was kept, and placed directly onto the shelves from behind the scenes. Out in the store, he saw Liquid and Beverly, still roaming around, looking for him. Lantis turned to him. "I'm not Solid. I'm a Solid. The state of matter I'm in is—" Liquid interrupted him.
"I never knew your name. When Beverly and I were still friends, she named you Solid after... Well, it's probably better if you didn't know."
"I'm Lantis," he introduced himself.
"It might have been better if you didn't tell me your name,"
Liquid said.
"You should never be so trusting of others. Anyway, let Big Bro Liquid take care of that imposter and his old pal. I'd love to show off what I can do for you."
"Wait," Lantis said quickly. "What's going on here? Who are you? Why are there two of you?" But he was speaking too loudly, and several gunshots whizzed past him. Lantis dropped to the ground to avoid the next round of shots, while Liquid leapt over his body and rushed along the back room, out into the main room. The Liquid who had attacked Lantis was shocked to see another one of him defending Lantis.
"What the fuck is going on?"
Liquid demanded.
"That's what I'd like to know,"
Liquid replied.
"This could get confusion,"
Beverly noted, now apprehensive about who to jam her chainsaw in.
"Then let's call him Evil Liquid,"
Liquid stated. But more practically, he took his headband off. Even if that just gave Evil Liquid the advantage, as his minion wouldn't be confused about who's who. Liquid didn't care. He didn't need any edge against this guy. Evil Liquid had failed to notice Lantis when he was right in front of him, while Liquid managed to spot him with enough focus. This let Liquid know all that he needed to know, that Evil Liquid couldn't be as skilled as him. Far as Beverly goes, he knows her limits.
"Why do I have to be the evil one?"
Evil Liquid asked.
"Are my ambitions really so wrong? All I wish is to see all of mankind destroyed." "Oh, wait, yeah, that's pretty evil." "Fine, I'll be Evil Liquid then."
The two Liquids stared each other down for a long moment, daring each other to draw. But Beverly's chainsaw roared back to life as she pulled the cord just once, and the moment she charged at Liquid, Evil Liquid drew his gun and fired on his doppelganger. Liquid rolled behind Beverly, just barely missing a chainsaw to the skull, and arrived behind a shelf full of junk food. He pulled out one gun with his right hand and a knife with his left to fire at Evil Liquid while preparing to block the chainsaw with the knife. He had to constantly fire on Evil Liquid, the constant shots suppressing his foe's ability to advance on him. If Evil Liquid could just round the corner and get a clear shot, he could easily put a bullet between Liquid's eyes. Not that the shots which were both nicking his torso or hammering it dead on were much better. Only 9mm, so not the most destructive shot in the world, but the bullet size had to stay small because both Liquids, kept a series of guns on their person. Every time one gun would run out of ammo, which would be in 12 shots, they would drop that gun and grab the next one. But while Liquid could only hold one gun at a time, Evil Liquid was free to draw 2 at once. Speaking of only holding one gun at a time, Beverly advanced on him again, and he held up his knife to block the attack, but the chainsaw's serrated chain caught the knife and snatched it from his hand, sending it flying up into the ceiling. Liquid drew another knife, and another. He kept them coming while continuing to lay down suppressing fire on Evil Liquid. But Liquid was falling back, not gaining any ground here. This was a truly terrible situation, and everything was happening faster than he was even perceiving it to happen. Heavy adrenaline was warping his perception of time. Only a moment's hesitation prevented him from taking one good shot at Beverly, for the sake of their old friendship. Because of this, he never got a single shot off towards her. Everything was over in a single heartbeat. Direct shot to his Kevlar vest after direct shot sent him back against the wall, his ribs shattering and his vision blurring from pain. His chest was going to be a deep black and purple for weeks after today. Evil Liquid was faring no better, having been knocked back against the counter, propping himself up against it with both elbows while continuing to fire. The chainsaw came down again, and Liquid's knife caught it yet again, only this time, instead of slinging the knife away, the chain snapped loose from the chainsaw, whipped around, and sliced Beverly's arm clean off above the elbow. She howled in pain, and Liquid internalized an apology while lunging at her to try and sink his knife into her chest. But despite the pain, horror, and surprise she felt, she still managed to recognize the incoming attack and turn away from it, taking the knife to her left shoulder. She fell back away from him, both arms useless now. She was no longer a threat. Liquid turned his full attention to Evil Liquid, and was now free to draw 2 guns as well. Shooting both guns out of Evil Liquid's hands, Evil Liquid drew 2 more straight away, while Liquid leapt on top of the shelf and began to run across the shelves towards the front of the gas station, shooting the next 2 guns out of Evil Liquid's hands before he could even get another shot off. Liquid landed on his doppelganger, forcing him to the ground and pummeling his face repeatedly until Evil Liquid had completely curled up defensively. Liquid pinned Evil Liquid's arms under his knees, then pressed the handgun to his head, just daring him to try anything.
"Who are you?"
Liquid demanded.
"I'm Liquid,"
he replied.
"Who the fuck are you?" "Let me change the question then. Who created you? Where did you come from?"
Liquid demanded. Evil Liquid gave him a confused expression.
"Are you fucking with me?"
Evil Liquid asked.
"You're the clone. Didn't you know that?" "Fuck off. You're the clone,"
Liquid shot back.
"How well does your memory work?" "Because mine works just fine,"
Evil Liquid told him.
"I remember my entire life. What about you?" "Of course I do,"
Liquid shouted.
"Ah, then that makes things even easier,"
Evil Liquid smirked.
"If I'm the clone, then why are all of your friends on my side? Beverly and..."
Liquid's jaw slowly dropped, and he tuned out the rest of what Evil Liquid had to say. That was a damn good question. Why had Beverly joined him? It could have been as easy as him tricking her, but... Either way, Liquid knew that this was a waste of time. He couldn't get any more info from this guy, so he shot Evil Liquid's brains out. Then he stood up and aimed his gun at Beverly, who moaned in agony in the corner of the gas station.
"What in the hell is going on here?"
A shrill voice cried out behind him. Janbert had returned to the store to find it a bloody, shot-up mess.
"Oh, Lantis is so fired! And I'm gonna send him the bill for the damages! And who are you? Here to rob us, right? Wait until the next clerk goes on duty. I don't touch the cash register. That's the job for commoners."
Liquid looked back at Beverly one last time, then looked over behind the shelves that the milk cartons used to be on before they were all shot up and knocked off the shelf. Lantis was no longer there. He had likely ran off a while back when all the fighting started. Liquid put his gun away, unable to finish Beverly off. Choosing to have friends was his only weakness, and it was certain to get him killed someday. He left the Circle M and disappeared into the streets of Cattailville. That concludes Chapter 8 of The Apartment. Tune in every Tuesday for new chapters. If you would like to reach me, you can do so at Lantis Armstrong on Twitter. That's LANTISARMSTRONG. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us again for next week's chapter, Seafood and the Supernatural.